Good evening aspirants, welcome to Daily News Analysis brought to you by Shankar IAS Academy. Today's date is 4th June 2024. Displayed here are the list of topics we are going to see today. Now let us get into the discussion. Firstly, let us discuss two previous year questions and then we shall get into the news article discussion. Look at this previous year prelims question. With reference to Li-Fi recently in news, which of the following statements are correct? Look at the first statement, it uses light as a medium for high-speed data transmission. Look at the second statement, it is a wireless technology and is several times faster than Wi-Fi. Now before answering this question, let us understand what is Li-Fi. Li-Fi means light fidelity. It is a wireless communication technology that uses visible light, particularly LED bulbs, to transmit data. It was first demonstrated in 2011 by Professor Harold Haas in Scotland. It provides high-speed, bidirectional, networked mobile communication in similar manner as Wi-Fi, but it has higher speeds, lower latency, and larger bandwidth. Li-Fi has advantage of being useful in electromagnetic sensitive areas like aircraft cabin, hospitals, and nuclear power plants. Its utilization of unused visible lights in human life can open up new opportunities in wireless communication technology. Also note that Li-Fi has short wave range and is unable to penetrate walls. So transmitters have to be installed in every room of the building to ensure the distribution of Li-Fi connection. So this requires high installation cost of Li-Fi. Now we shall address the question. Both of these statements are true. Li-Fi is a wireless optical networking technology that uses light-emitting diodes for high-speed data transmission. It uses visible light communication (VLC) to transmit data at higher speeds, which makes it an alternative to Wi-Fi. So the first statement is correct and the second statement is also correct. The correct answer is option C, both 1 and 2. Now look at this question. A decrease in tax to GDP ratio of a country indicates which of the following? Slowing economic growth rate, less equitable distribution of national income. First, let us discuss about tax to GDP ratio. This tax to GDP ratio is used to measure the tax revenue of the country. It is a measure of nation's tax revenue related to the size of its economy. Note that tax to GDP ratio determines how well a nation's government uses its economic resources via taxation. Now look at the first statement. Developed nations typically have higher tax to GDP ratios than developing nations. If the tax to GDP ratio is low, it means there is a slow economic growth rate. So the statement 1 is correct. Now look at the second statement. A greater tax to GDP ratio indicates a robust tax buoyancy in the economy. The government will be under pressure to adhere its financial targets. Moreover, it only shows growth in economy and not the distribution of national income. So we cannot find how well a national income is distributed across its population through tax to GDP ratio. So the statement 2 is incorrect. So the correct answer for this question is option A, 1 only. Now let us move to the news article discussion. Look at this news article. It talks about NASA's James Webb telescope. It has recently spotted the earliest known galaxy in the universe. It is 1700 light years away and existed about 290 million years after the Big Bang event. This is a significant discovery since it helps in understanding the early universe. So this is the crux of the article given here. In this backdrop, let us quickly go through James Webb telescope for our prelims exam. See, James Webb Space Telescope is a spacecraft telescope designed to detect the most distant and coldest objects in the universe. It will also analyze faraway potentially habitable planets and other cosmic events. Know that this James Webb telescope is designed as a successor to Hubble Space Telescope. It is named after a NASA administrator called James Webb. NASA coordinated the development of James Webb Telescope in association with Canadian Space Agency and European Space Agency. The telescope was launched on December 25, 2021. Some of the mission goals of James Webb Telescope includes search for first galaxies or luminous objects formed after the Big Bang, determining how galaxies evolved from their formation until now, observing the formation of stars from the first stages to the formation of planetary systems, measure the physical and chemical properties of planetary systems, including our own solar system, and investigate the potential for life in those systems. This telescope is orbiting just near the Sun-Earth Lagrangian area L2, which is around 1.5 million kilometers away from Earth. Now let us see some other important active telescopes in space. Firstly, Hubble Space Telescope. It was launched in 1990 by NASA. It is placed in low Earth orbit to study the expansion of universe. Then there is Chandra X-ray Observatory. It was launched in 1999 by NASA. It was launched to study high energy phenomena such as black holes, supernova remnants, and distant galaxies. Then Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope. It was launched by NASA in 2008 to study gamma ray pulsars and high energy process in universe. It is also placed in low Earth orbit. NASA is planning to launch Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, and European Space Agency is planning to launch Euclid Telescope in future. So these are the important telescopes in space to study distant galaxies. With this, let us conclude the discussion and move to the next topic. Look at this article. ISRO has developed a software named PraVaHa software. This software will stimulate internal flows on launch vehicles and also for re-entry vehicles, which are essential for aerodynamic design studies. Moreover, the software helps to understand the airflow around aerospace vehicles, which is critical for designing their shape, structure, and thermal protection system. So this PraVaHa software is regarding the designing of aerodynamics of launch vehicles. See, PraVaHa will be used in Gaganyaan program for human-rated launch vehicles. So this is the important point about the article. So in this context, let us discuss about PSLV and different orbits of satellites for our prelims exam. PSLV is a third generation launch vehicle of India. It is the first launch vehicle to be equipped with liquid stages. The first successful launch was on October 1994. Note that PSLV also successfully launched two important spacecraft, namely Chandrayaan-1 in 2008 and Mars Orbitar mission in 2013. PSLV earned the title Workhorse of ISRO through consistently delivering various satellites to lower Earth orbits. It can take up to 1750 kg of payload to Sun-Synchronous polar orbits, which is 600 km from the ground. PSLV also has been used to launch various satellites into Geosynchronous and Geostationary orbits. Now let us discuss what are these orbits. See, orbit is a curved path that an object in space takes around another object due to gravity. Let us see the different types of orbits around Earth. First is geostationary orbit. Satellites in geostationary orbits circle Earth above the equator from west to east and follows the rotation of Earth. It travels exactly at the same rate as Earth. This makes satellite in geostationary orbit appear to be stationary over a fixed position. This orbit is used by telecommunication satellites and weather monitoring satellites. Now coming to the lower Earth orbit. As the name suggests, lower Earth orbit is an orbit that is relatively close to the Earth's surface. It is normally at an altitude of less than 1000 km but could be as low as 160 km above Earth. Lower Earth orbit is most commonly used for satellite imaging. It is also the orbit used for International Space Station, as it is easier for astronauts to travel to and from due to its shorter distance. Now we shall discuss about polar orbit and sun-synchronous orbit. Satellites in polar orbits usually travel past the Earth from north to south rather than from west to east. So the satellites in polar orbit roughly passes over the Earth's poles. Polar orbits are a type of low Earth orbit as they are at lower altitudes between 200 to 1000 km. Sun-synchronous orbit is a particular kind of polar orbit. Satellites in these orbits traveling over polar regions are synchronous with the Sun. This means that they are synchronized to be always in same fixed position related to Sun. For example, passing the city of Paris every day at noon exactly at same time. A satellite in sun-synchronous orbit would be usually at an altitude between 600 to 800 km. So this is regarding this news article discussion. Now let us move to the next topic. Look at this editorial article. The article discusses the evolution of property rights in India. It particularly focuses on compensation for property taken by the state. It highlights key legal battles and amendments in Indian Constitution related to property rights. Let's break down the article and analyze the important points in this article. See, John Adams, a former US president, once said, "Property is as real a right of mankind as liberty." This means that property rights are just as important as freedom. In India, property rights started as fundamental rights but were later changed to constitutional rights. Over the years, there has been constant struggle between courts and government over these rights. This article explains how property rights have evolved in India, especially regarding compensation when the state takes someone's property. Know that around the world, the right to property and the need for fair compensation are recognized in many international laws. For example, Universal Declaration of Human Rights says that everyone has right to own property and should be fairly given compensation if deprived of it. Similarly, the European Convention on Human Rights protects property rights and requires fair compensation for public acquisition of property. Now let us see why property rights are important in India. See, property rights are crucial because they give people control over their belongings and help them feel secure. Initially, Indian Constitution protected property rights as fundamental rights under Article 31. This meant that They were very strong and protected by the judiciary. However, these rights have changed over time, especially when the government needed land for public purposes. In 1954, the Supreme Court of India said that if the government takes someone's property, they must pay a fair amount equal to what was taken. This was called Bela Banerjee case. The court said that the payment should not be less than property's value. In 1955, the government passed 4th Amendment to Constitution. This amendment made that court could not question if the compensation was fair or not. This was government's way of controlling how much they had to pay for the land taken. The court then started looking at how the compensation was decided, even if they couldn't question the amount directly. This was their way of checking whether the process of acquisition was fair or not. In 1971, the government made another change called 25th Amendment. In this amendment, they replaced the word compensation with amount in the constitution. This made it harder for courts to review if the payment was fair. The government could now decide how much to pay without much interference. In Kesavananda Bharati case of 1973, Supreme Court said that while they couldn't question the amount paid, they could still check the rules used to decide the amount. This kept some level of judicial oversight on the process. In 1978, the government made a big change with the 44th Amendment. Before this amendment, the right to property was a fundamental right enshrined in Article 19 and 31 of the Constitution. The 44th Amendment removed the right to property from the list of fundamental rights and made it a constitutional right under Article 300. Article 300A states that no person shall be deprived of his property except by the authority of law. This meant that property rights were still protected, but not as strongly as before. Now, what is the impact of this 44th Amendment? See, this change made it easier for government to take land for public use without paying as much compensation before. However, it also raised concerns about fairness and possible misuse of power. In this article, the author criticized the removal of strong property rights. He argued that even if the right to property was downgraded, fair compensation should always be part of any law involving property acquisition. Over the years, Supreme Court has continued to support the idea of fair compensation. They said that taking someone's property must be done in fair, just and reasonable manner. This means that even though property rights were no longer fundamental, they still needs to be respected. In a recent case involving Kolkata Municipal Corporation, the Supreme Court outlined 7 key protections under Article 300A. The right to be notified before property is taken, the right to be heard in court, the right to reason decision from the court, the duty to take property only for a public purpose, the right to fair compensation, a right to quick and efficient process, right to final conclusion. The court said that if any of these protections were missing, the law could be challenged. They also reaffirmed that fair compensation is essential when the government takes away someone's property. Despite legal protections, challenges remain in making fair compensation practices in many cases. Issues like bureaucratic delays, lack of transparency, and unfair valuation continue to be a major problem. This is the main question regarding this topic. Interested aspirants can try to answer this. With this, now let us move to the next topic. Take a look at this news article. To address declining water shortage in Chennai reservoirs, the Water Resource Department plans to request more water from Krishna River from Andhra Pradesh. So in this context, let us learn some points about River Krishna. Krishna River is the second largest river in peninsular India. The largest river in peninsular India is Godavari. See, Krishna River rises in Western Ghats near Mahabaleshwar in Maharashtra state. It flows in west to east direction. Since Krishna is an east-flowing river, it drains into Bay of Bengal. The Krishna has total length of approximately 1,400 km. The river is named after Lord Krishna, who is worshipped all over the country. See, the Krishna River is bounded by Balghat Range on north, Eastern Ghats on south and east, and by Western Ghats on west. Now talking about the basin of Krishna River. Krishna River basin extends over 4 states, namely Maharashtra, Karnataka, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. The river has a total catchment area of about 2.58 lakh square kilometer, which is approximately 8% of total geographical area of the country. The major part of Krishna basin is covered with agricultural land, which accounts for 75.86% of total area. Apart from this, Krishna River basin is rich in cultural heritage, flora and fauna. Now moving on to see about the important tributaries of River Krishna. The most important tributaries are Ghatprabha, Varna, Malprabha and Tungabhadra. Then the important left bank tributaries are Bhima, Musi, Palleru and Munneru. Note that Tungabhadra is the largest tributary of Krishna and Bhima is the longest tributary of Krishna. So these are some important points about Krishna River. With this, now let us move to the next topic. Look at this editorial article from Hindu newspaper. It discusses the critical need for equitable and sustainable healthcare policies in India. It highlights the role of private hospitals in driving innovation through advanced technologies and accreditation standards. We shall discuss a mains question regarding this topic. Look at the mains question. India has made phenomenal progress in access and availability of healthcare services since independence. Identify the bottleneck in health service delivery and suggest solutions. This topic comes under GS paper 3. See, it is a straightforward question. We need to give a brief about recent developments in health sector. Then we have to address the bottlenecks and give solutions in the body part of the answer. Now let us start answering the question. Firstly, the introduction. India's phenomenal success in healthcare services can be seen by looking at various milestones achieved in last 70 years. Indicators such as maternal mortality ratio, that is 140 per 1 lakh in 2020, infant mortality rate, that is 183 in 1951, which is reduced to 32 in 2020, and life expectancy years, which is 33 years in 1951 and it is now 70 years in 2020. These indicators have shown a big improvement, and also a near universal immunization of mothers and children have been achieved. Despite significant process, issues such as rising cost, disparities in access, and uneven quality of healthcare still persist. Addressing these challenges require a multifaceted approach, integrating policy reforms, technological innovations, and effective resource management. So these are all needed to improve the healthcare services in India. Now let us get into the body of the answer. Firstly, what are the challenges in healthcare affordability and accessibility? The first important reason is a rising cost. Healthcare costs in India are escalating due to inflation, the rising burden of non-communicable diseases, and the high cost of advanced medical technologies. The National Health Profile 2021 reported that out-of-pocket expenditure constitutes 62.4% of total health expenditure. Then there are disparities in access to healthcare. There are sharp disparities in healthcare access between urban and rural areas. According to National Sample Survey Office, 72% of rural and 79% of urban residents reported health issues, yet rural areas suffer from a severe shortage of healthcare facilities and professionals. The doctor-to-patient ratio in rural India is 1:10,926. If you look at the urban ratio of patient to doctor, it is 1:2000. This is far below the WHO recommended ratio of 1:1000. Now coming to the quality of care. Many government hospitals face challenges such as overcrowding, inadequate infrastructure, and shortage of essential medicines and equipment. The National Health System Resource Center reports that 27% of primary healthcare centers do not meet the Indian public health standards. Then there are financial barriers. High out-of-pocket expenditure is a significant barrier to healthcare access. The World Health Organization states that 55 million Indians were pushed into poverty in 2017 just because of healthcare expenses. This is compounded by lack of comprehensive health insurance coverage. Less than 37% of population in India is covered under any form of health insurance. This is according to Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. Now coming to the policy reforms and government initiatives. This is about the solutions to betterment of healthcare services. See, government schemes such as Ayushman Bharat, which aims to provide health coverage to over 100 million families, is a crucial step towards equality healthcare. The scheme has provided over 20 million hospital admissions since its inception, significantly reducing out-of-pocket expenditure for low-income families. Expanding such programs and ensuring their effective implementation can enhance affordability and accessibility. Now talking about technological innovations. Technology can bridge the gap in healthcare delivery, particularly in rural areas. Telemedicine, for example, has proven effective in providing remote consultations and reducing the need for travel. The Karnataka's telemedicine initiative, which reduced hospital visit by 40%, indicates how technology can improve access and efficiency of healthcare. Then about public-private partnership. It can also enhance healthcare infrastructure and service delivery. For example, the partnership between Andhra Pradesh government and private hospitals under Aarogyasri scheme has improved access to advanced medical care. We must also promote the health insurance coverage. This can reduce out-of-pocket expenditure for low-income families. The schemes like Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana under Ayushman Bharat is a step in this direction. So this is about the solutions regarding enhancing the healthcare services. Now we have completed the body part. Now let us see the conclusion. Making healthcare affordable and accessible in India requires a holistic approach that addresses financial, infrastructural, and policy-related challenges. Government initiatives like Ayushman Bharat, technological innovations such as telemedicine, and dynamic pricing models like those in Thailand offer viable solutions. Legislative reforms and increased investment in healthcare infrastructure is also essential. By integrating these strategies, India can move towards a more equitable and efficient healthcare system. So this is all about the discussion. Now we have come to the prelims practice question discussion. Look at the first question. With reference to Krishna River, consider the following statements. Krishna River originates at Talakaveri, located in Kodagu district in the state of Karnataka. Musi River is its tributary. It is the fourth largest river in terms of water inflows and river basin area in India. The statement 1 is incorrect. Krishna River originates in Western Ghats near Mahabaleshwar in the state of Maharashtra. And the statement 2 and 3 are correct. Musi River is one of the tributaries of Krishna. And Krishna River is also the fourth largest river in terms of water inflows and river basin area. So the correct answer for this question is option B, 2 and 3 only. Now look at the second question. Consider the following statements about LVM-3. That is Geosynchronous Satellite Launch Vehicle MK3. It is a 3-stage vehicle with 2 solid strap-on motors, 1 liquid core stage and a high-thrust cryogenic upper stage. It can be used to place satellites up to 8,000 kg in geosynchronous transfer orbits. Both Chandrayaan-2 and Chandrayaan-3 mission were launched using LVM-3. See, the statement 1 is correct. It is a 3-stage launch vehicle with 2 solid strap-on motors. One is liquid core stage and one is high thrust cryogenic upper stage. So this statement is correct. Look at the second statement, it is incorrect. It can be used to place satellite only up to 4,000 kg in geosynchronous transfer orbits. But it can take satellite up to 8,000 kg in lower Earth orbit. So this statement is incorrect. The statement 3 is correct. Both of these missions used LVM-3 launch vehicles. So the correct answer is option B, only 2. With this, we have come to the end of the discussion. If you like the video, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to Shankar IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you.